The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with tense energy as beings from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador HFY stood at the center of the circular room, his tall crystalline body catching the light from a dozen different suns streaming through the viewing ports. His species, the hegemony, had ruled star systems for over 10,000 years. Today, fear pulsed through his translucent form like poison. "Fellow council members," HFY began, his voice echoing through translation devices. "We face a threat unlike any we have encountered before." The assembled representatives shifted in their seats. The Zephyrians, with their large heads and silver skin, sat perfectly still. Their leader, Admiral Vexithara, watched with eyes that glowed faintly blue. Her people could read minds and control thoughts across entire planets. They had never met a species they could not dominate. Beside them, the massive Thraxians flexed their forearms impatiently. These warrior creatures stood 8 feet tall and had conquered more worlds through pure military might than any other species. Their general Korath drummed his clawed fingers on the armrest of his chair. "Show them the data," Admiral Vexithara said, her mental voice touching everyone's mind at once. HFY activated the holographic display. A small blue-green planet appeared in the center of the room, slowly rotating. "This is Earth," he announced. "Third planet from a yellow star in the outer rim. The homeworld of humans." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most had heard whispers about this strange new species, but few had paid attention. The outer rim was full of primitive worlds that never amounted to anything important. 23 of their years ago, humans were confined to this single world. HFY continued. They had primitive technology. They fought wars with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. By all mathematical models, they should have destroyed themselves through nuclear warfare or environmental collapse. The hologram shifted, showing the solar system around Earth. Red dots began appearing throughout the system, then spreading outward like an infection. Instead, they survived. More than survived, they expanded. Today, humans occupy 17 star systems. They have colonies on 43 worlds, including planets we classified as uninhabitable death worlds. General Korath leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. 17 systems in 23 years? That's impossible. No species expands that quickly without superior technology or massive population reserves. That's what makes them dangerous. HFY replied. The hologram zoomed in on one of the human colonies. The planet's surface showed sprawling cities connected by transport networks. Orbital stations dotted the space around it. They don't have superior technology. They steal it. They adapt it. They improve it faster than any species we've recorded. Admiral Vexithara stood gracefully, her silver skin shimmering. We studied their expansion on Kepler 442b. The planet's atmosphere was 80% methane when they arrived, toxic to most life forms. Within 2 years, they had established a colony of 50,000. Within 5 years, they had terraformed an entire continent. "How?" demanded Korath. "They captured one of our atmospheric processors from a derelict station. Instead of simply using it, they took it apart, studied every component, then built 12 improved versions. Their modifications were so effective that the terraforming process completed 70% faster than our own best efforts." The chamber fell silent. The implications sank in like ice water. HFY manipulated the hologram again, showing intercepted communications data. But their expansion rate isn't the primary concern. It's their unpredictability. Streams of data flowed through the air. Battle reports, trade negotiations, diplomatic exchanges. Every interaction showed the same pattern, humans behaving in ways that defied logical prediction. 3 months ago, the Centauri Mining Consortium attempted to claim mineral rights on a human colony world. Standard procedure. Overwhelming force, demand tribute, establish control. The humans were outnumbered 50 to 1. The hologram showed the battle. Centauri ships surrounded a small human settlement. The expected surrender never came. Instead of surrendering, they improvised. They used their mining equipment as weapons. They turned their communications arrays into jamming devices. They convinced the planet's native wildlife to attack. Centauri ground forces by playing recorded mating calls at specific frequencies. Several council members shifted. Uncomfortably, the Centauri retreated. HFY continued. Not because they were defeated militarily, but because the humans' tactics were so unpredictable that command algorithms couldn't calculate effective responses. The humans fought like they were insane, but every action served a strategic purpose that only became clear afterward. Admiral Vexithara moved to the center of the chamber. Her mental presence touched everyone's thoughts, carrying with it images and sensations from her own encounters with humans. My people attempted psychological evaluation of captured humans 6 months ago, she said. We expected simple minds driven by basic emotions. What we found was disturbing. The mental images she shared showed laboratory settings, humans strapped to examination tables while Zephyrian scientists probed their minds. But instead of the expected fear or compliance, the humans' thoughts showed something else entirely. Curiosity. They studied us while we studied them, Vexithara explained. Even under mental domination, part of their minds remained active, learning, analyzing. One human female, a scientist named Chen, actually managed to reverse analyze our telepathic techniques while we interrogated her. She began broadcasting false thoughts that led our researchers to incorrect conclusions about human psychology. General Korath slammed his fist on his armrest. So they're clever. Many species show cunning. We crush them anyway. You don't understand, Kethfor said urgently. Every encounter with humans has the same result. They lose the immediate battle, but they learn something that makes them stronger for the next encounter. They treat defeat as education. The hologram showed battle footage from various human conflicts. In each case, human forces were outnumbered and outgunned. They lost most engagements, but in subsequent battles they adapted with frightening speed. Look at this pattern. Kethfor highlighted specific data streams. First contact with the Vorthan Empire. Humans lost 80% of their fleet. Second encounter, 3 months later. Human losses dropped to 40% while Vorthan casualties doubled. Third encounter. Humans achieved tactical victory despite being outnumbered 3-1. They're learning our weaknesses, Admiral Vexithara added, her mental voice carrying undertones of worry that touched everyone present. But more than that, they're learning how we think. They study our decision-making processes, our tactical doctrines, our psychological profiles. Then they develop countermeasures. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from dozens of species voiced concerns, fears, and arguments. The hegemony demanded immediate action. The Thraxians called for total war. The Zephyrians suggested mass mind control. Kethfor raised his crystalline arms for silence. The mathematics are clear. If current expansion rates continue, humans will control 200 systems within 50 years. Their adaptive capabilities mean they will possess hybrid technology, superior to any single species within 20 years. Their unpredictability makes them impossible to control through conventional means. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembly. We face a simple choice. Act now to contain or eliminate the human threat, while we still possess overwhelming numerical and technological superiority, or face the inevitable day when they become the dominant power in this galaxy. Admiral Vexithara stood again, her silver form radiating determination. My people volunteer to lead the containment effort. Human minds are chaotic, but all minds can be broken with sufficient pressure. We will demonstrate once and for all that no species can resist Zephyrian mental dominance. The vote was swift and unanimous. Every species represented in the council agreed. Humanity must be stopped before they became unstoppable. As the representatives filed out to prepare their fleets, none of them noticed the small probe hidden in the chamber's upper atmosphere, its sensors recording everything. The device bore no markings, but its design incorporated elements from 6 different galactic civilizations. It was, of course, human-made. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Brisbane system, like silver ghosts emerging from the void. 50 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the cold light of distant stars. Admiral Vexithara stood on the bridge of her flagship. Her large silver head tilted slightly as she extended her mental awareness toward the human colony world. Beginning psychological assessment, she announced to her bridge crew. Her mental voice touched their minds with clinical precision. Initial scans indicate approximately 200,000 human minds on the planet's surface. The colony of New Brisbane orbited a red dwarf star, its surface a patchwork of agricultural zones and industrial complexes. From space it looked peaceful, almost primitive compared to the great cities of Zephyrian worlds. Admiral Vexithara felt a mixture of contempt and curiosity as she prepared to add another world to her species' collection of mental slaves. Open communication. Channels, she commanded. The main viewer flickered to life, showing the planet's communication center. A human female appeared on screen, middle-aged, with graying hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore practical clothing and looked tired, as if she had been working long hours. This was Dr. Sarah Chen, the colony's administrator. "I am Admiral Vexathera of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien began, her mental voice carrying undertones of irresistible command. "By order of the Galactic Council, this world is now under our protection. You will cease all resistance and prepare for integration into our sphere of influence." Dr. Chen looked directly into the camera. Her expression showed no fear, only mild interest. "Good morning, Admiral. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. I run the agricultural research program here on New Brisbane. Before we discuss integration, would you mind explaining exactly what that involves?" Admiral Vexathara felt a slight confusion. Human minds should have immediately responded to her mental commands. The doctor should be cowering, preparing to surrender, overwhelmed by the psychic pressure that had broken countless species before. Instead, the human was asking questions. "Integration involves the complete subjugation of your species to Zephyrian authority," Vexathara replied, increasing the mental pressure. "You will comply with our directives without question. Your technology and resources will serve the greater galactic order. Resistance is futile and will result in unnecessary suffering." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "I see, and if we refuse?" "Refusal is not possible. Your primitive minds cannot resist our psychic influence. Even now you should be feeling the compulsion to obey." Vexathara projected her full mental power at the human, enough force to dominate entire planetary populations. On the screen, Dr. Chen rubbed her temples slightly. "That's interesting. I'm getting a mild headache, but nothing unmanageable. Hold on a moment." She turned away from the camera and spoke to someone off-screen. "Marcus, are you getting any unusual mental sensations?" A man's voice replied from somewhere in the background. "Yeah, it's like someone's trying to convince me I should be scared, but it's not really working. Kind of annoying, actually." Admiral Vexathera's silver skin darkened with shock. Her mental commands were having no effect. She had dominated the minds of beings far more psychically developed than these humans. How were they resisting? "Dr. Chen," she said, her mental voice now carrying edge of anger, "you will surrender immediately, or we will be forced to take more direct action." "I understand your position, Admiral," Chen replied calmly, "but I'm afraid we'll need some time to discuss this with our people." "Would 24 hours be acceptable?" The audacity was breathtaking. Vexathera had never encountered a species that negotiated after being told to surrender. "You have 6 hours," she said coldly, then cut the communication. Around the bridge, her officers shared confused mental exchanges. Their psychic abilities were functioning normally. They could sense and influence each other's thoughts without difficulty. But the human minds below remained stubbornly independent, like trying to grasp smoke with their mental abilities. "Begin orbital bombardment of military targets," Vexathara ordered. "Perhaps physical pressure will succeed where mental pressure has failed." The bombardment began with surgical precision. Zephyrian energy weapons struck the colony's power plants, communication arrays, and defensive installations. The humans had no shields capable of stopping the advanced alien weapons. Within 2 hours, the colony's infrastructure lay in ruins. But instead of surrendering, something unexpected happened. The humans scattered into smaller groups and began moving through the city's underground systems. Their communications shifted to primitive radio frequencies, and even more primitive methods: flags, smoke signals, and patterns of reflected light. "They're using pre-technological communication methods," reported the fleet's intelligence officer. "We cannot intercept or jam signals transmitted through visual patterns and chemical markers." Admiral Vexathara watched through orbital surveillance as human civilians began constructing crude weapons from industrial equipment. Mining lasers were modified into military weapons. Construction vehicles were armored and turned into mobile fighting platforms. Even the colony's waste processing systems were somehow converted into weapon manufacturing facilities. "This is impossible," she muttered. "No civilized species fights like this." The ground assault began at dawn. Zephyrian troops, confident in their mental dominance abilities, landed in the colony's central plaza. They expected the humans to flee or surrender when faced with superior firepower and psychic control. Instead, They found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable military doctrine. Humans attacked from storm drains and building ventilation systems. They used their own infrastructure as weapons, flooding areas with industrial chemicals and collapsing buildings on advancing troops. When Zephyrian forces tried to establish control points, humans would disappear into the civilian population, only to emerge hours later with knowledge of alien weak points and tactics. The most disturbing aspect was their coordination. Despite having no apparent command structure that Zephyrian mind readers could detect, the humans fought with surprising unity. Groups of fighters would coordinate attacks using methods that bypassed telepathic detection entirely. Cultural references, shared experiences, and emotional connections that created understanding without direct mental contact. Captain Zektar, leading the ground forces, found himself trapped in the colony's commercial district, with his troops surrounded by humans who seemed to appear from nowhere. "Admiral," he reported through their mental link, "these beings fight like they're insane, but their tactics are extremely effective. They use weapons we don't recognize, coordinate through methods we can't intercept, and show no fear of death." "How many casualties?" Vexithara demanded. 70% of my force is either dead or incapacitated. The humans have suffered similar losses, but they continue fighting with undiminished intensity. Recommend immediate withdrawal to orbit. Admiral Vexithara felt something she had never experienced before: doubt. The Zephyrians were losing a ground battle to a species that should have been helpless against their mental powers. Worse, the humans were learning. Each engagement showed them adapting their tactics, incorporating lessons from previous defeats into increasingly effective strategies. The retreat was a disaster. Human fighters pursued the withdrawing Zephyrian forces, capturing equipment and prisoners. But instead of executing their captives, the humans did something that chilled Vexithara to her core. They studied them. Medical examinations, technological analysis, and careful behavioral observation. The humans were treating the invasion as a learning opportunity. As the last transport lifted off from the colony surface, Dr. Sarah Chen appeared on the communication screen again. She looked tired and dirty with a bandage around her left arm, but her eyes held a disturbing intelligence. "Admiral Vexithara," she said, "I hope you'll forgive our resistance. We're naturally curious about new neighbors, and your visit has taught us quite a lot about Zephyrian technology and tactics. We've recorded everything, of course." "You cannot resist indefinitely," Vexithara replied, though her mental voice lacked its earlier confidence. "We have 50 ships. You have mining equipment and improvised weapons." Dr. Chen smiled. "That's true, Admiral. But we have something you don't seem to understand. We have time to learn, and we're very good at learning. This attack has provided us with excellent data about your capabilities, your weaknesses, and your tactical preferences." She paused, then continued with disturbing calm. "We've already begun broadcasting our findings to every human colony in this sector. By tomorrow, detailed analysis of Zephyrian military doctrine will be available to every human settlement within 50 light years." The communication cut off, leaving Admiral Vexithara staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew shared worried mental exchanges. They had achieved tactical victory. The colony was damaged and isolated. But somehow, it felt like defeat. In the months that followed, reports would reach the Galactic Council of Human Colonies implementing new defensive strategies based on data gathered during the New Brisbane attack. Zephyrian tactics that had worked for millennia were suddenly useless against an enemy that had studied them, analyzed them, and developed countermeasures. The news of New Brisbane spread through human space like fire through dry grass. Captain Marcus Torres received the transmission, while his cargo freighter, the Iron Will, was hauling mining equipment to the outer colonies. The message was simple: alien forces had attacked a human world. The implications were anything but simple. "Sarah Chen's alive," his communications officer reported. But New Brisbane took heavy damage. The aliens withdrew after 3 days of fighting. Torres was a veteran of the resource wars that had ended human conflicts on Earth decades earlier. He understood military tactics, but more importantly, he understood humans. "Get me a channel to every ship in the sector," he ordered. Emergency frequency, within hours. What had been a loose collection of cargo haulers, mining ships, and small patrol vessels began transforming into something the galaxy had never seen before: a human war fleet organized not by central command, but by shared purpose. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the mining vessel Deep Prospect," came a voice over the communications network. "I'm reading 47 ships responding to the emergency call. What's our situation, Torres?" Torres studied the tactical display showing human vessels converging from across the system. None of them were military ships in the traditional sense, but humans had never been traditional. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and using civilian vessels against a species that's been conquering worlds for thousands of years. Standard Tuesday for us, really. Laughter echoed across the communication channels. It was the kind of humor that humans used when facing impossible odds. Not because they thought the situation was funny, but because laughter was better than fear. The improvised fleet intercepted Admiral Vexithara's forces at the edge of the Kepler system, where the Zephyrians had stopped to analyze their encounter with human resistance. The alien admiral was confident that her 50 warships could easily defeat the ramshackle collection of human civilian vessels. She was right initially. The first engagement was a massacre. Zephyrian energy weapons cut through human ships like knives through paper. The humans had no shields, no armor, and weapons that were centuries behind alien technology. In the first hour of battle, they lost 16 ships. But something strange happened as the battle continued. The surviving human vessels began fighting differently. They stopped trying to engage the Zephyrian warships directly, and instead began using tactics that made no military sense. Ramming attacks, using their cargo as improvised weapons, and coordinating in ways that bypassed normal communication channels. Captain Torres watched his tactical display as human ships executed maneuvers that violated every principle of space combat he'd ever learned. The cargo hauler New Hope released its entire hold of industrial diamonds into the path of pursuing Zephyrian fighters, creating a cloud of microscopic projectiles that shredded alien hulls. The mining ship Prospector's Dream used its ore processing laser to blind Zephyrian sensors while other human vessels attacked from unexpected angles. They're learning, Torres realized with growing excitement. Every ship they destroy teaches us something new about their weapons and tactics. The human fleet began transmitting real-time combat data between vessels, sharing information about Zephyrian shield frequencies, weapon patterns, and tactical preferences. What the aliens saw as chaotic resistance was actually systematic data gathering conducted under fire. Captain Vasquez's voice crackled over the comm system. "Torres, I've got something. Their shields cycle through frequencies every 37 seconds. If we coordinate our attacks to hit during the transition..." "Do it," Torres replied. All ships follow Vasquez's lead. The coordinated attack succeeded beyond their expectations. 3 Zephyrian vessels lost shields simultaneously, suffering critical damage from weapons that should have been useless against their technology. But the real victory was what they learned from the attack. Admiral Vexithara watched from her flagship as the human fleet executed increasingly sophisticated tactics. These weren't trained military personnel. Intelligence reports indicated they were mostly civilian cargo haulers and mining crews. Yet they adapted to combat conditions with terrifying speed. "How are they coordinating?" she demanded of her tactical officer. "Our sensors detect no central command structure, no tactical data network." The answer came from the ship's intelligence analyst, who had been monitoring human communications. "Admiral, they're using cultural references, shared experiences, and emotional connections to coordinate. When one human says, 'Remember the Alamo,' others immediately understand complex tactical instructions without detailed explanation. Their coordination method bypasses our intelligence gathering entirely." The battle reached its turning point when Captain Elena Vasquez made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Her mining vessel had taken critical damage and was losing life support. Instead of retreating, she activated her ship's emergency beacon and spoke directly to every human vessel in the battle. "This is Captain Vasquez of the Deep Prospect. My ship is dying, but I've got something the rest of you need to see." She transmitted detailed scanner readings of the Zephyrian flagship's shield harmonics and weapon systems. "I'm going to ram their command ship. Use the distraction to scan everything you can about their technology." Torres tried to stop her. "Elena, there has to be another way." "There is," she replied, and her voice carried the kind of calm determination that humans showed when they'd made an irreversible decision. "The other way is letting these bastards think they can attack human worlds without consequences. I'm going to teach them something about consequences. The deep prospect accelerated toward the Zephyrian flagship, its damaged hull glowing with heat from overloaded engines. Admiral Vexthera ordered evasive maneuvers, but the human ship's trajectory was perfect. As it approached, every human vessel in the fleet focused sensors on the alien flagship, recording everything about its design, weapons, and defensive systems. The collision was devastating. Both ships disappeared in a ball of expanding plasma and debris. But in the moments before impact, Captain Vasquez transmitted complete technical specifications of Zephyrian shield technology to the entire human fleet. The remaining human vessels used this information to devastating effect. They began targeting specific frequency ranges, exploiting weaknesses in alien defensive systems, and coordinating attacks with precision that shocked the Zephyrian forces. What had been a one-sided battle became a running fight as human ships systematically dismantled the alien formation. Admiral Vexthera ordered retreat, but the damage was done. The humans had proven something that would terrify the galaxy. They could learn faster than their enemies could adapt. Every defeat taught them new lessons. Every sacrifice provided crucial data for future battles. As the Zephyrian fleet limped away from the battlefield, Captain Torres addressed the surviving human vessels. Elena Vasquez died to give us the information we needed to hurt these aliens. We're going to make sure her sacrifice means something. Every human colony needs to know what we've learned here. The data from the battle spread through human space with unprecedented speed. Within days, every human settlement had detailed technical specifications for Zephyrian technology. Engineers began developing countermeasures. Military planners studied alien tactics. Scientists analyzed enemy weaknesses with the same systematic approach they used for everything else. But the most significant development was psychological. The galaxy had attacked humanity, and humanity had responded not with fear or attempts at negotiation, but with scientific curiosity and systematic learning. They treated the war not as a struggle for survival, but as an educational opportunity. Reports reaching the Galactic Council painted an alarming picture. Human colonies were not just defending themselves. They were actively seeking out Zephyrian outposts and allies, using captured intelligence to launch preemptive strikes. Worse, humans had begun making contact with species previously conquered by the Zephyrians, sharing anti-psychic techniques and weapons technology. The universe's apex predators were discovering that they faced something they had never encountered before, prey that became more dangerous every time it was attacked. The humans were turning the galaxy's own strength against itself, learning from every encounter and sharing that knowledge with ruthless efficiency. Admiral Vexthera's report to the Galactic Council was brief and deeply disturbing. The humans cannot be conquered through conventional means. Every attack makes them stronger. Every defeat teaches them valuable lessons. We may have created the very threat we sought to eliminate. The galaxy was beginning to understand why humans could not be conquered, because conquest required breaking an enemy's will to resist. But resistance itself made humans more dangerous than any weapon in the known universe. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a state of barely controlled panic. Ambassador Kethavor stood at the center of the great chamber, his crystalline form flickering with nervous energy as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Around him, representatives from the galaxy's most powerful species waited in grim silence. The situation has deteriorated beyond our most pessimistic projections, Kethavor announced, his voice carrying through the translation matrix with unusual strain. In the 3 months since the Zephyrian containment operation began, human activity has increased by 400%. The holographic display above the chamber showed a tactical map of known space. Red indicators marked human colonies, which had grown from 17 systems to 29 systems in just 3 months. More disturbing were the yellow markers indicating former Zephyrian territories that had gone silent. Admiral Vexthera rose from her seat, her silver skin noticeably darker than before. The failed campaign had taken a visible toll on her. "The humans are not simply defending their territory," she reported. "They are systematically dismantling our galactic network. They target communication relays, supply depots, and administrative centers with surgical precision." "How is that possible?" demanded General Korath, his massive form shifting impatiently in his reinforced chair. "Your species has been gathering intelligence for millennia. How can primitives from the Outer Rim know more about your operations than you do? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Admiral Vexithara's mental voice carried undertones of frustrated confusion as she replied, "They study us, General. Not just our technology or our tactics, but us. They analyze our psychology, our decision-making patterns, our cultural assumptions. They know how we think before we know what we're thinking." Kethavor manipulated the holographic display, showing detailed reports from across the galaxy. Intelligence indicates that humans have established contact with 17 species previously under Zephyrian mental control. They're sharing counter-psychic techniques and weapons designed specifically to neutralize telepathic abilities. A new voice joined the discussion, Ambassador Yithara of the Collective, her insectoid form clicking with agitation. "Our monitoring stations report human vessels in sectors they should not even know about. They appear to have detailed maps of every major trade route, military installation and communication network in civilized space." "That's impossible," General Korath growled. "Such information would take centuries to gather. Unless," Kethavor said quietly, "they obtained it from captured sources and analyzed it with unprecedented efficiency. We have reports of human research teams dissecting Zephyrian prisoners, not out of cruelty, but with scientific thoroughness that reveals every aspect of our physiology, psychology, and technological integration." The implications sent a chill through the assembled representatives. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were conducting a comprehensive study of galactic civilization, using their enemies as unwilling test subjects. Admiral Vexithara shared mental images from recent encounters. "Human fleets now move with coordination that rivals our best military formations. But their coordination doesn't follow any recognizable command structure. They seem to anticipate each other's actions through methods we cannot detect or intercept." The images showed human vessels executing complex tactical maneuvers with perfect timing, as if guided by a single intelligence, but sensor readings detected no central command signals, no tactical data networks, no psychic coordination methods that Zephyrian technology could identify. "They've weaponized their own unpredictability," Kethavor explained. "Human battle plans incorporate random elements that make their strategies impossible to predict, while somehow maintaining devastating tactical effectiveness. They've turned chaos into a military doctrine." Ambassador Yithara's compound eyes focused on the display showing recent battle reports. "Our war computers cannot generate effective countermeasures because human tactics violate every known principle of strategic thinking. They use randomness as a weapon while maintaining coherent operational goals." "There's more," Admiral Vexithara continued, her mental voice heavy with implications that chilled every mind in the chamber. "Intercepted human communications indicate they're treating this conflict as what they call continuing education. They're not fighting for survival. They're learning how the galaxy works." The holographic display shifted to show intelligence reports from human communications intercepts. The translations revealed conversations between human officers that spoke of the war in terms that shocked the galactic representatives. "Listen to this exchange between human commanders," Vexithara said. Activating an audio recording, two human voices spoke in their primitive verbal language, with translation overlays providing meaning to the assembled council. "The Thraxian battle formation is fascinating," one human said. 4 primary attack vectors with secondary support elements. "Very efficient for overwhelming single targets." "Yes, but look at their response time for tactical adjustments," the other replied. "Nearly 47 seconds between new information and doctrinal adaptation. That's a significant window for exploitation." "Excellent. Add that to the tactical database." "What about the hegemony supply chain analysis?" "Complete. We now understand their logistical requirements for extended campaigns. Their fleets require specific resource replenishment every 18 days of active operation." The recording ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The humans were discussing their enemies' capabilities with the clinical detachment of scientists studying laboratory specimens. General Korath's 4 arms clenched into fists. "They're cataloging our weaknesses like they're building a library." "That's exactly what they're doing," Kethavor confirmed. "Human databases now contain detailed analysis of every major species' military doctrine, technological capabilities, psychological profiles, and strategic limitations. They know more about us than we know about ourselves, Ambassador Yathara's antennae twitched with nervous energy. We created exactly the threat we sought to prevent. By attacking them, we forced them to study us systematically. Every engagement provides them with new data about galactic civilization. The chamber erupted in agitated discussions as the full scope of the situation became clear. The galaxy's apex predators had accidentally created something unprecedented, an enemy that became stronger through opposition, that treated warfare as education, and that systematized the process of defeating superior opponents. Admiral Vexithara stood again, her mental voice cutting through the chaos with disturbing news. There's one final development that the Council must understand. Human communications indicate they have identified every species that participated in the decision to contain them. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence carried a different quality. The silence of predators realizing they had become prey. They know who we are, she continued. They know where our homeworlds are located. They know our political structures, our military capabilities, our economic dependencies, and they're approaching this information with the same systematic analysis they've applied to everything else. HFY activated. One final display. A comprehensive map showing human fleet movements over the past month. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Human vessels were positioning themselves for simultaneous strikes against the homeworlds of every species represented in the Council. They're not planning to conquer us, he said, his crystalline form growing dimmer with the implications. They're planning to teach us the same lesson they've learned, that in this galaxy, the most dangerous predator is the one that learns from being hunted. General Korath stood slowly, his massive frame trembling with something the Thraxian warrior caste had never experienced. Fear. What do we do? For the first time in galactic history, the Council of Apex Species had no answer. They faced an enemy that improved through opposition, learned from defeat, and systematically turned the galaxy's own strengths against itself. The universe's most dreaded species had discovered something that would reshape the balance of power forever. The humans could not be conquered because conquest itself made them unconquerable. The galaxy was about to learn why predators should never hunt prey that studies predators for a living. The human fleet materialized at the edge of the Galactic Council's capital system, like ghosts emerging from the void. 200 vessels hung in perfect formation, their hulls bearing the scars of countless battles and the modifications that told the story of rapid technological evolution. What had once been cargo haulers and mining ships now displayed the sleek lines of hybrid technology. Human innovation merged with captured alien systems. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Elena Vasquez, named for the captain whose sacrifice had turned the tide of the war. She was Dr. Sarah Chen's younger sister, the survivor of New Brisbane who had watched her world burn and learned from the experience. Her calm eyes studied the tactical display showing the massive defensive installations surrounding the Council homeworld. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, "We're detecting over 3,000 defensive platforms and 800 capital ships. The entire galactic fleet appears to be concentrated here." Chen nodded without concern, as expected. They're hoping overwhelming numbers will compensate for tactical disadvantage. It's the same mistake every species makes when facing an opponent they don't understand. She activated the fleet communications system, her voice carrying to every human vessel in the formation. All ships maintain current positions. We're not here to fight today. We're here to teach. The massive screen at the front of the bridge flickered to life, showing the interior of the Galactic Council chamber. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered in emergency session, their various forms tense with anticipation. Admiral Chen could see the fear in their alien features, the knowledge that they faced something unprecedented. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet," she began, her voice calm and professional. "I believe you've been expecting us." Ambassador Kethvor stepped forward, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "Admiral Chen, we are prepared to negotiate a cessation of hostilities. The Galactic Council recognizes that our initial assessment of human capabilities was incomplete." Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that made every alien in the chamber unconsciously step backward. It wasn't cruel or threatening. It was the smile of a teacher about to deliver an important lesson. "Ambassador Kethvor," she replied, "I don't think you understand the situation. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to demonstrate why negotiation is your only viable option. She gestured to her communications officer, who activated a comprehensive data display visible to the council chamber. The holographic presentation showed detailed files on every major species, their military capabilities, economic dependencies, and strategic weaknesses. The level of detail was staggering. Complete technical specifications for weapon systems, psychological profiles of military commanders, and precise maps of every critical infrastructure installation in civilized space. Over the past 6 months, Chen continued, you've provided us with an excellent education about galactic civilization. Every attack taught us something new. Every battle gave us opportunities to study your tactics, your technology, and your decision-making processes. We've learned more about your capabilities than you've learned about ours in centuries of expansion. The data display shifted to show battle analysis from the war. Human forces had lost most engagements in terms of ships destroyed and casualties taken, but every loss had contributed to an expanding database of enemy capabilities. The systematic nature of human intelligence gathering was breathtaking in its scope and terrifying in its implications. Admiral Vexithara found her voice, though her mental communications carried undertones of defeat. What do you want? An excellent question, Chen replied. What we want is for you to understand something fundamental about human nature. We are persistence hunters, Admiral. On our homeworld, our ancestors succeeded not by being stronger or faster than their prey, but by being more stubborn. We pursue our goals until we achieve them or die trying. The display changed again, showing the expansion of human territory during the war. What the galactic species had seen as defensive actions were actually systematic expansion efforts. Humans had used the conflict to justify rapid colonization and military buildup, turning alien aggression into fuel for their own growth. You attacked us because you feared we would become dangerous, Chen continued. But you fundamentally misunderstood the nature of danger. We're not dangerous because we're superior to you. We're dangerous because we refuse to accept that anyone is superior to us. General Korath stepped forward, his massive frame trembling with suppressed rage. You speak of persistence, human, but you still face the combined military might of the galaxy. Your 200 ships cannot defeat our thousands. Chen's smile widened, and this time there was something predatory in the expression. General, you're making the same mistake your species always makes. You're thinking about this as a military problem. She activated another display, this one showing the current disposition of galactic forces. Every major fleet was concentrated around the Council homeworld, leaving critical infrastructure across the galaxy virtually undefended. While your ships are here, protecting your government, human forces are currently occupying the primary manufacturing centers for Thraxian military equipment, the central data processing facilities for hegemony logistics networks, and the breeding worlds where Zephyrian telepaths develop their abilities. The council chamber erupted in panicked communications as representatives tried to contact their homeworlds. The responses confirmed their worst fears. Human forces had simultaneously struck at the most critical points of galactic civilization, not to destroy but to capture and study. This is impossible, Ambassador Kethavor protested. Our intelligence networks would have detected such coordinated movement. Your intelligence networks, Chen replied, were designed to track civilized species that follow predictable patterns. We don't fight like civilized species, Ambassador. We fight like humans. The final display showed the true scope of human intelligence operations. Using captured alien technology and systematic analysis of enemy behavioral patterns, humans had identified and exploited every weakness in galactic security. They had turned the galaxy's own strength against itself with mathematical precision. You see, Chen explained, this was never about winning battles or conquering territory. This was about demonstrating a fundamental truth. In a galaxy full of specialized predators, the most dangerous creature is the one that specializes in learning how to hunt specialists. She paused, letting the implications sink in before continuing. We could destroy your fleets. We could occupy your worlds. We could dismantle your civilizations piece by piece. But that would make us just another conquering species, and frankly, we find conquest boring. What we offer instead is something unprecedented in galactic history: coexistence between equals. The offer hung in the air like a physical presence. For species accustomed to dominance hierarchies, the concept of equality was almost incomprehensible. The choice is simple, Chen concluded. Except that humans are now part of galactic civilization as equals, with all the rights and protections that implies, or continue this conflict and discover just how thoroughly we've learned to dismantle civilizations that threaten us. Ambassador War found his voice after long moments of silence. And if we choose coexistence? Then we share what we've learned. Human educational techniques, technological innovations, and analytical methods become available to everyone. We turn our systematic approach to learning toward solving galactic problems instead of studying galactic weaknesses. The representatives looked at each other, their various forms of communication buzzing with urgent consultations. They faced a choice between destruction and transformation, between maintaining their status as apex predators or accepting a new reality where predator and prey were obsolete concepts. Admiral Vexithara was the first to speak. The Zephyrian Empire accepts coexistence. One by one, the other species followed, not because they had been conquered, but because they had been taught something that reshaped their understanding of power itself. As the formal accords were signed, Admiral Chen watched the proceedings with satisfaction. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had conquered without conquering, dominated without dominating, and taught the galaxy's apex predators the most important lesson in the universe. In a cosmos full of creatures that specialized in being the best at something, humans had become the best at becoming better. The universe's most dreaded species had learned why humans could not be conquered, because conquest required breaking an enemy's will to resist. But humans had turned resistance itself into their greatest strength. They had transformed every attack into education, every defeat into improvement, and every threat into an opportunity to evolve. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in cosmic history, that was a promise rather than a threat.